Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Today we are here in Washington DC asking people one really important question during Labor Day weekend. That is, are tips necessary? Let's see what people's reactions are. Why? Would you mind answering why? And since we are here in Washington DC, the first person that we should ask this question to is Mr. President. So Mr. President, do you tip?
And then they be getting like $10 of it or like $5 of it. Yeah. So they're sus what they're paying. Yeah, it depends.
Are tips necessary?
Now I'm nervous.
I'm a strong believer in, like, if you're just turning the iPad and like it's like 5%, 10%, I'm hitting no tip. Like you just flip the iPad. I don't know I'm tipping for that. I'm not tipping for that one.
Yeah.
First of all, let's see, what's your name? And what do you do?
I'm Jenna. I go to college here.
Okay. And what do you think about this question?
Yes, because we don't pay workers a livable wage in this country.
Okay. Do you have any preferences? What occupations should always get tips?
Waitresses, people who perform a service for you.
Okay. Do you tip UPS drivers?
I can't physically do that though, because I don't see them drop my stuff off.
Okay. During restaurants?
I tip in restaurants, yes.
Okay. Any suggestions for people who believe that you should not tip? Because there is quite a good amount of people who think that you should not tip. What do you have to say to them?
You should try working one of those jobs and see how you get by. Like, that's just what I think.
That's a good answer. What about you? What's your name?
My name is Lindsay.
And what do you think?
I agree. I think that tips should be necessary because there are many jobs in this country in which workers are not paid a livable wage, and the main means in which they get by are on tips. So,
have you ever done a job where you were supposed to get a tip and you never got a tip?
I have worked. I have not worked in one of those types of jobs though.
We have two more folks answering the same question. Let's see what their opinions are. What's your name and what do you do?
I'm Amari and I'm a student here in DC.
And what do you think about this question?
Are tips necessary? I think they're very important. I think it gives like someone who makes minimum wage an extra boost in what they do because they're working very hard.
Okay. Do you think that there should be some jobs where tips should be mandated? Have you ever been in a situation where you went to a restaurant and you were like, they flip the screen and it's like you do not tip, but they make a face where you're like, why didn't you tip? Have you ever been in this situation?
Yeah, so I actually worked at a bakery and cafe, so a lot of times, like people would pay and that money doesn't go directly to me, but when they would tip, that money gets divided up and it goes all to me, so I kind of get an extra boost for how much I worked, which I think is really important because it shows that the customer appreciates what you did for them.
And what do you have to say to the folks who believe that no, tips are not something that you should entertain? Because if you know that tipping culture is primarily in the United States, there are a lot of countries where people might also refuse. I think it's in Japan where people refuse to take any tips. What do you think about that culture?
I think it's actually a good culture to have. I just think that here it's so implemented that people kind of appreciate if you give them an extra boost and an extra tip because it shows you appreciate the work that they did for you.
Well, that's a good answer. What about you?
Well, I mean, I think that, that a lot of these countries that don't accept tips, it's because they get paid enough and well enough that they can they survive and aren't dependent on tips. So I feel like maybe the US should try and adopt ways in which we can pay our workers the right amount so that they can survive. And so maybe tipping culture is necessary right now for a lot of these underpaid workers, but I feel like we should transition where they won't even need tips and are supported by their salaries.
So what do you think if the government decides to pay like $25 or $30 an hour, and do you still think that there should be an option on the screen that after every bill you should enter a tip?
Well, I mean, I like the part where if a service worker or a waiter or waitress, if they do an exceptional job, you could give a little extra on the side. You also want to show these workers your appreciation for what they do for you. So I feel like there should be an option, but if we're paying workers $25, $30 a livable wage, then it can be really much more necessary and less almost forced that you have to tip.
So let me ask a tricky question to both of you. What jobs at this point of time do you guys think should not entertain tips? That's a tricky question.
Okay, I feel like, so you know, like when you're like or like asked to tip and it's like in the front of the screen and like the worker barely did anything other than stand there. I feel like there's still okay, like that could be like a little bit of like an optional tip because like you're tipping someone for like doing what? Just standing there. Like if it's going to all the other workers, then like yeah, but like if you're just standing there, then like it's not an exceptional job. I'm sorry, that 18% can go elsewhere in the world.
So restaurants with that have self-service.
Yeah, like self-service ones. Like who are you tipping? The robots?
Right. What jobs should mandate a tip?
Mandated tip, I think it's definitely like small businesses and like a lot of lesser paid jobs, especially when you know the workers are being paid under minimum wage or potentially. I think one situation where we don't necessarily need to tip is drivers, because a lot of drivers, I think it depends, like Uber, they already pay their workers a lot.
Right.
So I think tipping in that case is a bit harder because you're already giving them almost a tip by ranking them afterwards and ranking the driver. Therefore, they're going to get more customers. But I think in small situations, like if you're, I don't know, if someone's making you a meal, it's important to show your appreciation for them by tipping.
I don't know. Uber sus. Like I be paying like $27 for an Uber. And then they be getting like $10 of it or like $5 of it. Yeah. So they're sus what they're paying. Yeah, it depends.
Good. What's your name and what do you do?
My name's Steve, and I am I work in ministry at a Methodist church.
Oh, nice.
And I think that tips are necessary, at least the way the restaurant business is set up in this country, where workers get paid very little, and so they have to rely on the tips to survive.
But is it only in the restaurant business, or do you believe like when you're doing an Uber, or do you ever tip a UPS driver?
Yeah, honestly, I rarely do tip a UPS driver. I don't even think about that.
What about Uber?
I've never used an Uber, so I wouldn't know how to answer that question.
I see. But what about restaurants that have only self-service? Like you just go ahead, place an order, you have to go pick your tray, eat, put the food in the trash, then walk out.
I think for me, it all depends on what kind of pay the workers are getting in the first place. If they're getting paid a livable wage and it's not expected that they'll get tips, then and I don't receive any kind of exceptional service above and beyond, like a self-service place where they're making above minimum wage and not relying on tips, I probably wouldn't. But in a restaurant where they're making $2-3 an hour, definitely I would.
Oh yeah, of course. So we are here with
Jelaya.
And what do you do, Jelaya?
I'm a barista.
So we are asking one really interesting question. During Labor's Day, especially, are tips necessary?
Now I'm nervous. I know for some people they're necessary because they get paid like dirt. But personally for me, I get tips at my job, but I don't rely on them. I don't need them. But I can understand why people think tipping is necessary if they live off of them.
What kind of a job are you in?
I'm a barista. I work at a coffee shop.
But do you think that tips help a lot of people?
Yeah. I know some of my friends, they will with their tips, they'll be, oh yeah, now I can put gas in my car because I have an extra $20 that they didn't have before. And it's instant money.
Can you imagine if US for one day decided, just for one day, no tips, no tip day?
I'd be fine.
You'd be fine? But what about others?
They would not be fine. I know my friends who are waitresses, they work in the service industry, and they'll oh, I'll just work a double if I need to pay rent. So I know if that happened to them, they probably it would be hard.
Okay, so today we are here with
Logan.
Tanner,
and what do you guys do?
I am a campus recruiter.
marketing assistant.
So during Labor Day weekend, we're asking people one really important question. Are tips necessary? What do you guys think?
Yes, servers don't make enough. People in the service industry don't make enough, so tips make up for that.
What about you?
I agree. I think so, yes. Most people rely on them that work in the service industry.
But have you guys ever been to a restaurant with 5 or more people? They've started adding gratuity to it.
Oh, yes.
If they do you still go ahead and pay the tips or no?
Okay, honestly, no, because then it's included. So.
Right. What about you?
I agree, unless I'm on a date with my girlfriend, I got to do it so I don't look bad.
Well, let me ask you guys a tricky question.
Okay.
What field or what industry should you guys never pay any tips in?
Oh, I don't know if there is. I think tips are always nice for any industry, no matter how much you make. Doctors could be tipped, lawyers can be tipped, and they're some of the highest paid people ever. But if they do a good surgery, they deserve a tip. But it's not a thing.
Well, let me ask you this. Tell me a situation where you felt that, no, this service does not deserve a tip at all.
I feel like can I go back to food?
Sure.
If I'm waiting for my food for a long time, or like it's just like I gotta keep asking for the same thing, or like it's just the wrong order, I feel like at a certain point, maybe a tip is not necessary there.
What about self-serve restaurants like Chick-fil-A or McDonald's? Do you still believe when you are just ordering, going and picking up from the counter and then throwing the trash again? Do you still believe you should tip?
I'm a strong believer in like if you're just turning the iPad and like it's like 5%, 10%, I'm hitting no tip. Like you just flip the iPad. I don't know if I'm tipping for that. I'm not tipping for that one.
Yeah. Sorry.
What do you think? What should be the minimum tipping amount? Because now, as he said, a lot of restaurants, they have this screen where they just flip it and it's like by default starts by 20% and then it goes to 35, 50 or 80. What do you think that should they include an option where add a tip and then it comes to that screen, or you're like put in a pressure situation, like turn it around until and unless you add a tip, only then it goes to the final amount?
Yeah, I think you should be able to customize it. I don't think that there should be percentage at like a 25 starting. I think you should be able to just hit the amount that you want to tip.
What about you?
I second that.
All right, so today we are here with
Matt,
and what do you do, Matt?
I'm a teacher.
Okay, what do you think about this question? Are tips necessary?
It's a good question. Me and my friend Rob fight about tips all the time. Yeah, it's for restaurants.
What's your take?
Yeah,
They should.
yeah.
And what about your friend Rob?
He's big on tipping
Oh, he's big.
for like everything,
Okay.
like no matter what it is.
How much amount do you think should be the minimum tips if you go to a restaurant where, let's suppose it's a family-owned restaurant, then what do you do?
Tip.
But what if 100% of the amount that you're paying for your food goes to the family-owned business?
We probably don't need a tip.
Would you still pay? Would you still tip in that situation?
Probably.
What situation do you think you should never tip in?
I guess people don't tip like really bad service, but I usually end up still tipping.
And why is that? Is that a pressure situation, or is that a custom? Or why?
I think it's just people tip. It's part of the custom.
Or is that pressure?
Pressure. Yeah.
Have you ever been in any situation where you were like, no, I don't need to tip, or you were about to tip, but even before tipping, someone asked you, are you not going to tip?
Are we talking about just restaurants?
Any place, any service.
Just this weekend, we were at a hotel, and the bellhop brought our suitcases up, and I almost didn't tip. And then I was like, wait, do I have to tip? And then I ran after him, and I had no idea how much to tip. I gave him like $6.
And was the opposite person happy?
Yeah.
And do you think UPS drivers should be tipped?
No.
Why?
I don't know. I don't even see them really. They just drop it off. And also, they're getting paid $170,000 now.
Well, that's true. What about Uber drivers?
I never tip.
Never.
Sorry, Uber drivers. I never tip.
And why?
I don't know. I just don't.
Isn't that a service?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any preference on minimum tipping amount? Let's suppose if it's $100. What should be the minimum tip amount?
15, 20%.
Jennifer.
And
Henry.
And what do you guys do?
I'm a waitress.
Jenna cook.
It's a perfect time to ask these guys a question. Are tips necessary? Let's see what the response is.
Tips are absolutely necessary
And why do you think so?
because tips will keep the cost of your food down, because the employers can pay us like $2 or $3 an hour plus our tips, and that's based on what kind of service we give. And so we get able to keep the food costs down, and everything else. So if we took tips away, the employers would have to pay us $20, $30 an hour, whatever, because people weren't tipping. So you're going to pay a lot more for your food also if you don't tip.
So what do you think? Does she deserve more tip than you? Because if I'm a customer, if I give her the tip, does it actually come until the chef?
No, I think is we get paid hourly, so it's completely different in the service that she does.
Right.
So has there been ever a situation where someone came to your restaurant and he was like, I need to give this tip to the chef?
Yes.
There's multiple occasions, yes. So somebody will come in and say, share this with all the cooks and people who work in the restaurant.
Yeah, we've had like them
Multiple
give
times.
a lot, like $100. They give one to each one of the cooks and keep one for yourself. Oh yeah, absolutely. People can be very generous or very not generous, but most of the time they're very nice and they deserve it. So yeah.
So there's this thing going on lately is tip culture coming to a tipping point. People usually get pressurized in situations where they are not even happy with the service, and they're in a pressure situation where they have to tip.
Right.
Do you guys think that this is valid, or they should still tip irrespective of whatever service they get?
I was always told that tipping is not necessary. It's like a bonus. It's like my boss always told me if somebody didn't leave a tip, he goes, that's like a gift. Like your tip is like a gift. There's no guarantee. So it's okay if you don't tip. But also understand that, tipping is part of our wages. So we're not working for $25 an hour. We're working for $5 an hour. So I think that came in when the people started tipping for like the Starbucks window type thing, that kind of stuff. I think it's more pressurized to do that too. So, but I don't know. The people at Starbucks work super hard too. So I don't know. That's kind of, I wouldn't want to do what they do. So they should get tipped too, I think. So.
What do you guys think about the self-service restaurants where you just have to go to the kiosk, place an order, then you have to go back, pick it up, throw the trash? What happens in that situation?
Didn't go through the drive-through. I don't think it's necessary. If you want to sit down and eat, you have to understand that tipping is part of the process. It's part of the whole thing. So it's part of what we do. And like I said, if you don't tip, your food cost is going to go up because now the employers have to pay us at least minimum wage, and they don't. They don't. So, just be understanding if your price of your food goes up if you don't want to tip.
Let me ask you guys one last question.
Okay.
What profession do you guys think should not entertain any tips?
Oh my. What profession should have no tips? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It will be hard to answer that.
Yeah, I know there's so many. We just had an Uber driver who drove us here, and he was awesome. So of course, you want to tip these guys because you know that they're not making a lot of money. So each one of their rides is like $4 or something ridiculous like that. So not tipping, oh my gosh, anybody who is the owner of the company probably shouldn't get tipped. That's all I could say. So like an owner, I don't think they need to get tips. They should make sure that their employees get everything. So. I don't think it matters what you do. So if you own the place, then it's up to you to take care of your employees.
Sarah.
And what do you do, Sarah?
I work for pharmaceuticals.
Nice. Do you get any tips?
Definitely not.
Do you think are tips necessary?
I think for certain jobs, yes.
What profession do you think tips are absolutely unnecessary?
When you're picking up your food.
Like self-service.
Self-service, I don't think.
Carry out.
I think carry out you don't need to tip.
What about UPS drivers? They do make a lot of money, but do you think that you guys should have an option to tip them?
No.
Why?
I think it's already with the delivery costs that you pay. I don't think there should be extra tips for that.
What about the self-service restaurants, like family-owned businesses?
If you're going in and eating there, yes, I think you should tip.
Have there been ever a situation where you went to a restaurant or any service place and you were like, I'm feeling pressurized to tip, even though the service isn't good?
I haven't felt pressure, but I think that you don't have to pay the certain amount of tip. I think you could slide it up and down.
I see. Any suggestions for the folks who believe that tips should not be entertained?
I think that if you're not happy with the service, you don't have to tip the 15%. You can tip less than that.
But you should always tip.
Unless they really messed up your food.
So, there you have it, guys. You heard all of them. Each and every person believes that you should always tip, unless your order is really messed up or it's the automated systems doing majority of the job. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next time.